day, another real world test. Today we're doing on the Samsung S24, the smallest and most affordable phone in the new Samsung S series this year. Now, we're going to explore, as per the usual, while we test out this phone, but first things first.
Coffee. Check. Some people might know that the Polo Bar is a famous New York restaurant that happens to be owned by Ralph Lauren. Yes, the clothing brand. But Ralph Lauren also has coffee shops too. Apparently Ralph Lauren himself says that the smell of freshly brewed coffee evokes so many memories for me, and that he wanted to create a place where people could come together and take a break from their busy days. The in-store coffee shop with somewhat of a retro vibe is located inside the Rylander Mansion, which was built in 1898 and is on the National Register of Historic Places. Lauren bought and refurbished the four-story mansion in 1983 to showcase his brand at a published cost of $14 to $15 million. Gertrude Rylander Waldo, the American heiress who commissioned the mansion, never actually lived in it, and lived instead with her sister in a row house across the street. When the Ralph Lauren store opened in April of 1986, it became a huge attraction with visits from celebrity clients like Jackie Onassis and Audrey Hepburn. Now honestly, it's a ridiculously ostentatious place, and it always seems to have a crazy line, and the coffee is, well, it's not cheap, but it isn't bad. And, I just kind of love the idea that I can drink coffee just outside a registered historic place, even if right now it's getting a bit of a facelift. Okay, while we're here, let's talk about the S24's design. Firstly, we have flat sides now, and while I've gotten more I thought that was an iPhone than I have with any other phone, besides maybe the Nothing Phone 2, I do like the look. The phone is actually a gram lighter than the previous model if you go for the lowest spec, and it's the same weight if you go for any of the other ones. But all of them are almost exactly the same size as the S23, but they all have 0.1 inch more screen, interestingly enough, just like the S24 Plus compared to its predecessor as well. Now it is a 120Hz adaptive refresh display, so animations and scrolling appear smoother, and it can lower that refresh rate to try and save battery. Now the screen gets brighter now than last year to a peak of 2600 nits versus the 1750 nits of before. And that screen and the back are covered in Gorilla Glass Victus 2, just like the Plus, but not the Gorilla Armor panel that is on the S24 Ultra, which is slightly more resistant to scratching and shattering apparently, and also has this neat anti-reflective coating that the S24 and S24 Plus don't. We also have an armor aluminum frame on the S24 and S24 Plus versus the titanium one that's now on the S24 Ultra. And like all of the S24 lineup, we have an IP68 rating, so they can be submerged down to 1.5 meters for up to 30 minutes. Overall, a couple of subtle changes to the design that you may or may not like. I personally do. And maybe even a couple of subtle upgrades. With 42 million visitors a year spanning across the 843 acres of Central Park and very few straight streets and paths, it's easy to get a little lost here. What a lot of people don't know, though, is that the lampposts can actually serve as a way to navigate the park. The secret navigation system was implemented in 1907 and designed by Henry Bacon, who was the architect of the Lincoln Memorial. Now, most of Central Park's 1,600 lampposts or luminaires has a plaque with 4 numbers on it. The first 2 of these numbers indicate the closest cross street, and the last number shows which side of the park the lamp is closer to. Odd numbers mean west, even numbers mean east. And the numbers also get larger the more north you go. So, for example, 7108 would mean that we are close to East 71st Street, and 7517 means we're between West 75th Street and 76th Street, closer to 75th. Clever, right? Okay, let's take some photos in the park on the S24 and talk about it a bit. For hardware, it's all going to sound very similar to the S23. We have the same ultra-wide camera that has a 1 by 2.55 inch with 1.4 micron sized pixels sensor, the same 50 megapixel f1.8 aperture 1 by 1.56 inch Samsung ISOCELL GN3 main sensor with 1 micron sized pixels that are binned in sets of 2 by 2 to get a 12 megapixel image with 2 micron sized pixels. Yes, that math doesn't math, but for some reason it removes 0.5 megapixels that should probably be there. I don't know. And then we have the same S5K 3K1 sensor, which is the same from the S21 Ultra, by the way. And that's our 3x optical telephoto lens with a 10 megapixel f2.4 70mm equivalent field of view that's 1 by 3.94 inches with 1 micron sized pixels. Now, as always these days, hardware is a good starting point, but the software and the processing makes a huge difference. And Samsung has adjusted their image processing and look a bit again, which you can see the subtle differences in these photos from the S23 and S24 side by side. And lastly, we have the same 12 megapixel front-facing camera that we had last year that is still on all of the S24 series. Love this city. Central Park designers Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux designed the park as a place to escape from the city. And where we are now in the park is called Bethesda Terrace. In conjunction with the Bethesda Fountain and the arcade, all of this is sometimes referred to as the heart of Central Park. If you look closely at the terrace's upper level, at the intricate carvings in the piers, they represent night and day. And on the staircases to the lower level are the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter, with detailed fruits, flowers, and plants. Now, Vox's approach to the buildings in the park was to design them as secondary to the design of the landscapes, stating, quote, nature first, second, and third, architecture after a while. With views of both the lake and the wooded area, Bethesda Terrace was actually one of the very first structures built in Central Park. Construction started in 1850 and continued through the Civil War and finished in 1863. In the 1960s, the terrace was an outdoor cafe, actually, but as years went on, the area quickly became a place where drugs were sold more than cafe things. By the late 1970s, the fountain actually dried out for years, but the Central Park Conservancy fully refurbished both the fountain and the terrace in the early 1980s during their original park restoration campaign. Now, both the Bethesda Terrace and fountain have been featured in countless movies and shows, and the arcade hosts concerts by the New York Philharmonic and Metropolitan Opera, as well as some impromptu concerts that just happen. It's one of the more iconic and recognizable spots in the park. Now, something interesting about the S24 this year in particular is that even though it's the cheapest of the S24 series, it comes with the same Galaxy AI features we've come to know on the S24 series now. If you want more of a look at those, by the way, I've linked my S24 Ultra and S24 Plus real-world tests below. You can also go check out where we explored during those. Now, the more useful things like live transcribe and translate for phone calls and messages, to Grammarly-like autocorrection for full sentences and spelling using the Samsung keyboard, to transcription and search in the voice recording app, like that of the Google Pixel version that has been raved about on those devices for years now, to the new Google feature of circle to search, to tap and hold, to then be able to tap or circle items to search for them quickly, which even though it came to the S24 series first, will definitely be on a lot more Android phones going forward. But again, unlike Google, who actually enables certain clearly cloud-based features on their Pixel 8 Pro and not on the Pixel 8 in an effort to use AI and software to give the former more value, Samsung has chosen to not do that. The S24 has all of the same Gen AI-based features that the $500 more expensive Ultra has, at least for now. I admire and love that, but if we're honest, it's probably not the way things are going to go in the future. You can already see companies starting to use generative AI as a way to charge more for things that don't actually add to their cost of goods sold. Unlike, say, a larger, better camera sensor that costs the company more and the end price for the user goes up. But again, until that day, if those Gen AI features are a big draw for the S series for you, then even this little guy will get you access for those for a huge chunk less. Now, one particular gripe I have with this phone, though, is the battery life. So here is my screen on time usage for today, which forced me to recharge the phone earlier using a battery pack, but is not indicative of a normal day, as it was a real-world test day, and I use the camera a lot more than you ever would. So here is another day that was a more normal use day for something to compare that to. And well, it dies a lot faster than I would have liked, and this is in spite of having a very slightly larger battery. It's actually to the point where if you aren't able to charge your phone in your car or at your office, I definitely recommend a small battery pack for sure. There you go. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll leave a link to the best price that I could find on the phone and any deals that there are in the description below. If you're not subscribed though, please do so and ding the bell so you get notified when I do new real-world tests and we go explore more places. But it is late, I'm in the middle of the park, and it's dark and I need to get out of here and go home. Hopefully I can find the plaques and figure out how to get out of here. Good night. The secret navigate. People almost crashed on the bike path. That's what that screeching sound was. Plane. In the park. Electric bike. Meow.